1850s were a time of reform in America, and women were in the front ranks of the reformers. Harriet Tubman led hundreds of slaves to freedom. Dorothea Dix worked for humane treatment of the insane. Susan B. Anthony pressed for women's rights. And Ellen White broke with custom by speaking in public. And in 1853, in Bucksbridge, New York, a 19-year-old woman made her mark in Adventist education. She was Martha Byington, the daughter of John Byington, a depot operator on the Underground Railroad.
I suppose this isn't exactly a good supper table topic, but I was over at Uncle Aaron Hilliard's today when little Eddie came home from school.
What's so bad about that, Martha?
He was crying as though his heart would break, Fletcher. The other children had been teasing him unmercifully all day because he goes to church on Saturday.
All the Adventist children suffer such taunts and ridicule. It's a terrible shame.
I know how hard it can be, Mother. I remember how the other children taunted me at school because we entertain Indians and people of color in our home. Why should Adventist children have to go to school at all? Jesus is coming very soon.
Well, until he does, son, we have to be prepared to live on this earth. Besides, if children learn to read and reason, well, they can study the Bible truths for themselves, and they'll be prepared to give an answer for their faith.
That's true, John, but I still wish they didn't have to go to public school.
You've given me an idea, dear. I think there are enough Adventist children around here that we could start our own school. That way they could have Bible lessons every day along with the 3 R's.
Oh, yes. There are several Adventist families here. My 2 brothers, Aaron and Henry, the Penoyers, the Crosbys, and the Pecks. But who would we get to teach?
I'll do it.
Martha Byington taught the first SDA school in the Aaron Hilliard home, with just over a dozen students. In 1854, the school was taught by Lucinda Payne, and in 1855 by Martha's brother, John Fletcher Byington. Church headquarters were established in Battle Creek late in 1855, and Fletcher apparently moved there after the school term to work in the review office. It must have been late in 1857 or early 1858 when he was called to an interview with James White.
Brother Byington, I understand that teaching is your business of choice.
Oh, yes, sir. I've never received more satisfaction from any work I've done.
Good. As you know, Mrs. White and I have both written about the need for parents to protect their children from the influences of the world.
I've read the articles very carefully.
Many parents have taught their children at home, and a number of the churches have operated schools like the one you taught. In fact, the Battle Creek Church has decided to open one, and we'd like you to teach it.
Why, that's, impressive.
You're quite right to be hesitant, young man. Previous attempts here haven't been notably successful. Sister Osgood taught a home school for a year at the same time you were teaching, I believe.
So I've heard.
Then Sister Mary Louise Morton had a try, and Brother Robert Holland ran a school for a couple of years. Unfortunately, his discipline was apparently too lax, and many of the parents failed to pay the tuition fees.
Yes, sir, and that's why, although I love teaching...
Have no fear, Brother Byington. This time the church itself intends to pay your salary.
In that case, sir, I'd be delighted to accept your offer.
But this time, the parents complained that discipline was too strict, and after a couple of years, the school lapsed again. In 1858, the rest of the Byington family moved to Battle Creek, where in 1860, Martha married George Amadon, foreman in the publishing house and editor of the Youth's Instructor. When the denomination was organized in 1860, with Martha's father, John Byington, as the first president, the church leaders made no provision for developing an education program. The next small step was taken in 1867, when a master teacher appeared in Battle Creek and young people took matters into their own hands.
Good afternoon, sir.
Good afternoon, young man. What may I do for you?
My name's Edson White. I'm a typesetter at the review office. I saw you sawing wood for the boiler, and I wanted to meet you.
How do you do, Mr. White? My name's Bell. Goodloe Harper Bell.
How do you do, Mr. Bell?
Is it your ambition to remain a typesetter?
Oh, no, sir. I want to be a printer or a publisher. I also enjoy writing, but I don't think I'll ever write because I hate grammar.
Hate grammar? Why, young man, grammar, properly taught, is one of the most interesting studies in the world.
You sound like a teacher.
I've been a teacher for about 15 years, ever since I was 19. About your age, I'd say.
Well, pretty close. Yes, I'm 18. Johnny Kellogg wants to be a teacher. He wants to go to college, too, but he's sick a lot, so I don't think he'll be able to. Did you go to college?
I attended Oberlin College, an excellent school, the first coeducational school in the country.
I've heard Brother George Amadon talk about it in the printing office. He went there.
I wasn't there as long as I should like to have been, but I learned enough to make a good living as a teacher at some of the best schools in Michigan.
I didn't know teachers made good money.
In some places they can. I learned a number of principles at Oberlin that were similar to those held by the Adventists. It made me more receptive to the third angel's message when I came here.
Which principles do you mean?
Well, a vegetarian diet was followed, and so were other health principles that agree with what your mother has taught.
Is that why you came here?
No. After my wife's death last year, I became dyspeptic. All I wanted to do was to restore my health. I was determined not to change my religion again. I'd already converted from the Baptists to the Disciples in my youth.
What changed your mind?
My roommate at the Health Institute was Brother Osborne. Every night, when he thought I was asleep, he prayed for me, aloud. Well, after a while, I could no longer resist what I knew to be the truth.
Is that why you're still here?
Well, I'm not fully recovered yet. I'm still staying at the Health Institute. Well, this job of sawing wood helps both my health and my pocketbook. After all, I have 3 little girls to support. And I do miss teaching, though.
Well, until you can get back to teaching in a real school, would you perhaps consider teaching me and a few of my friends? Oh, we could use some help on grammar and mathematics.
I'd be glad to help you out. Hello, young Mr. White. Won't you come in? And who are all these young men with you?
Well, I've brought you 14 scholars, Mr. Bell. Oh, this is my brother, Willie.
Hi.
Johnny Kellogg.
Hello.
His brother, Will.
Nice to meet you.
George States. Homer Aldrich.
14? Oh, these are the few friends you told me about?
Yes, and we're all ready for school.
G.H. Bell taught first in a room in the Old North Lodge, but as his reputation for excellent teaching grew, the room seemed to shrink. He had to find new quarters.
This is the building I told you about, Brother Bell. The original review office and print shop. It doesn't look like much now because we've been using it as a dumping ground for cast-off items since we moved to our new building.
I'm sure I could move out enough things to make a room for a class, Brother Smith.
Well, there are 2 floors, you know. If you want, you and your daughters could live downstairs and you could hold classes upstairs. How does that sound?
It sounds like an excellent idea.
Brother Bell, the parents of the Battle Creek Church have become aware of your outstanding abilities as a teacher. Because of this, the church has voted to ask you to conduct a school for us at a moderate salary. Will you accept?
I will, brother, and thank you.
We're so privileged to have a teacher of Brother Bell's caliber here in Battle Creek.
That's true. It's only because he joined the church that we have the benefit of his skills. We could never have paid a salary to match what he received at public institutions.
Whatever salary he demanded would be worthwhile. I can't tell you how happy we've been over the change in our Andrew since he started going to school, to Mr. Bell. Why, Andy actually enjoys studying now, and he's so well behaved.
Or merely intimidated. My Harold is terrified of the man. I think Mr. Bell is far too strict.
I've heard the same from other parents. I wonder if we've made a mistake. After all, he came here in poverty, practically a beggar. Who knows what sort of creature he may be?
That's nonsense. Mr. Bell is a godsend, an educator par excellence, and so I've told him. I can't believe he'd ever do anything wrong.
After one term, the church decided the cost of a teacher's salary was too great. So Bell operated his school as a private venture. Evidently, tuition proved difficult to collect, and when the impoverished Bell was offered the position of youth's instructor editor in May 1869, he gladly accepted, closing his school. Other responsibilities were heaped upon him. He was appointed superintendent of the Battle Creek Sabbath School and a director of the Health Institute, became a Sabbath school consultant for other churches, and in 1870 was elected General Conference treasurer. With the loss of Bell as a teacher, a Seventh-day Adventist educational system seemed a distant dream. In 1871, Adelia Patton Van Horn was elected General Conference treasurer in place of G.H. Bell. Jenny Tremblay, who would later attend Dr. Trall's medical school with J.H. Kellogg and the White's sons, replaced Bell as editor of the Youth's Instructor. Bell, who had remarried in 1869, remained leader of the local Sabbath school and a director of the Health Institute. But his experience in Battle Creek had become bitter. In December 1871, in Bordeauxville, Vermont, Ellen White was shown some of the causes of the bitterness.
Let me stoke up this fire a bit, Ellen. That wind really chills the room. There. Now, you said you had received a vision about Brother Bell's troubles in Battle Creek?
Yes, James. And I saw that there's fault on all sides. Brother Bell has been given responsibilities that are more than can reasonably be expected of any one man. And then, too, the parents of petted and indulged children have objected to his thorough discipline in the school.
It's just as it was with Sister Hannah Moore. Because Brother Bell came to us in poverty, he's despised.
On the other hand, Brother Bell has been too sensitive to criticism.
But some have spoken up for him besides the two of us.
Well, unfortunately, some of the praise has been as extreme as the criticism, and it's caused Brother Bell to feel exalted. He's come to the place where he can hardly bear to hear any counsel or suggestions from others, even from experienced brothers and sisters.
That's disturbing. If we ever do get a denominational school started, I had hoped we could count on Brother Bell to teach it.
Well, I don't think we should give up on him. He loves his work as a teacher and gives his whole mind to it. I'm preparing a testimony that I hope will help to heal the breach.
In the early spring of 1872, the Battle Creek Church members talked about establishing a denominationally sponsored school. James White, Uriah Smith, and E.W. Whitney were appointed to work on a plan. General Conference officers were brought in, and the new president, G.I. Butler, proved to be an enthusiastic supporter.
Brother Smith, I agree with Brother and Sister White. We need our own school, where influences of a moral character may be thrown around the pupils.
Mm-hmm.
I have no patience with the idea that ignorance is a help to spirituality. A school of our own can train denominational workers and help to develop mental discipline in our ministers.
I'm glad to hear that, Brother Butler. Sister White has said that even a few months of grounding in Bible study would benefit those who are just entering the ministry.
That's right. Now, I'm not proposing a long course of theological study. We have no time for that, and it's not necessary. But it's important that our children be taught to reason by teachers who love the Lord and their pupils, as Sister White has advised.
Our problem right now is finding a site for the school and a teacher. We've proposed May 7th as the opening date, and already 2 brethren from Europe are on their way here to attend the school. We'll have to move swiftly.
Why not just take over Brother Bell's select school? That would give us time to raise funds and prepare for a larger school.
An excellent idea. We can contact prospective students through the review and ask them to tell us their educational background and let us know what subjects they're interested in studying.
They were not able to make the proposed May date, but on June 3, 1872, G.H. Bell opened a 12-week school approved by the General Conference Committee. Enrollment soon increased to 25, and in the evenings, Bell taught grammar classes for review employees. At the request of the California Believers, James and Ellen White had left in mid-May for their first visit to the Golden West. Their trip was interrupted by an unexpected but badly needed vacation in Colorado with Ellen's niece Caroline Walling and her husband Will. While in Colorado, Ellen was thrown from her pony, tearing ligaments in her ankle. The injury didn't heal properly, and the ankle caused her terrible pain for years. The Whites spent the winter in California and witnessed the formation of the California Conference in February 1873. They returned to Battle Creek for the March session of the General Conference. James gave the opening address.
Probably there is no branch of this work that suffers so much as the proper education of men and women to proclaim the third angel's message. We want a school in which the languages can be taught and learned by young men and women to prepare them to become printers, editors, and teachers.
Well, Brother White, the resolutions passed at this session are a good start. I hope we'll soon be able to establish the proposed educational society, so we can plan a school on a more advanced level than the one we presently have.
So do I, Brother Butler. But we must begin immediately to raise funds. I have no misgivings about the ability of the Seventh-day Adventists to provide the money we need. Look at the liberality that was shown in erecting the Second Review and Herald building.
Ah, Sister White, you must be as pleased as your husband with the resolutions that have been passed for a denominational school.
Indeed I am, Brother Butler.
Ellen, we've been talking about the need to raise funds to meet the legal requirements for the proposed educational society.
Oh, that's important. And we also need to find a site and erect a building. Brother Bell is rapidly running out of room. If someone hadn't thought of attaching folding desks to the seats in the church, I don't know how he could have continued to teach this long.
The school is certainly growing. The December term opened with 63 pupils. They weren't all children either. A number of review employees are taking classes and also attending Brother Smith's lectures on Bible subjects. Oh, a school building is vital.
On April 22nd, 1873, James suffered another paralyzing stroke, followed on May 13th by a lighter attack. He decided to drop all his responsibilities and spend the summer in Colorado. The Whites traveled west with 18-year-old Willie and Ellen's best friend of 20 years, Lucinda Hall. They were visited there by Dudley and Lucretia Canwright.
Whoa there, Sandy. Good boy. Lucretia, dear, hand me Genevieve, will you? And then I'll help you down.
Brother and Sister Canwright, welcome. It's so good to have your company. You've come at a good time. I've just discovered wild strawberries growing nearby.
How wonderful, Sister White. Well, we'll be glad to gather some for you as soon as we get unpacked.
Oh, that'll be fine, Sister Canwright. I'll send Willie out to help with your trunks. Hello, Genevieve. You seem to have enjoyed the trip. Oh, how old is she now?
15 months. She's a lively little handful, toddling everywhere, always investigating.
Unfortunately, the visit, which started so pleasantly, ended in hard feelings. No record of the dispute exists, but during an acrimonious exchange with James, D.M. Canwright called into question the legitimacy of the testimonies. This was one of the first times he expressed unbelief. Angry over the counsel Ellen presented to them both, the Canwrights left. A few months later, the quarrel was made up, and the two families were working together again. In the meantime, the Whites had other obstacles to overcome.
This is such a beautiful, peaceful spot, Ellen. I'm glad Mr. Walling suggested we camp here by Grand Lake for a while.
Yes, James. This is a wonderful example of the Creator's artistry. Well, I do hope, though, that Will Walling returns soon. Don't you think there's been time for him to get that axle fixed by now? We're running very low on supplies.
It does seem he should be returning. I've promised this pamphlet to the review, and I'll have to get it mailed soon if it's to get there on time.
Morning, Mother. Father.
Morning, Willie.
Morning, Willie. Have you been visiting your fisherman friends?
Yes, and it's a good thing I did. They're leaving tomorrow.
Tomorrow? Maybe they could take this pamphlet back to Black Hawk and mail it for me. I'd better get right to work on it if I'm going to get it done in time. Uh-oh.
What's the matter?
I'll have to work till late tonight, and we're out of candles.
What can you do, Father?
I know. Remember that dead wolf we saw in the trap, Willie?
Yes, I do. It wasn't far from the camp.
Here, take this hunting knife and this pan and scrape off all the fat you can find on that wolf. And take a shotgun. There are bears in these mountains.
Here, Father. I've melted the wolf fat into the cup like you asked. Now what?
Now, I twist this rag. Like this. Put one end in the cup and light the other end. There. I have a lamp.
James sent the pamphlet out with the fishermen in the morning, and a few days later, Will Walling arrived with supplies. Throughout the summer, the Whites kept in touch with events in Battle Creek. The church leaders there were determined to set the denominational school on a permanent footing and to construct an adequate school building. While James and Ellen White were recuperating in the mountains of Colorado in the summer of 1873, the church leaders in Battle Creek were working to place the denominational school on a permanent footing. G.H. Bell had been head of the school since September of 1872, but now some felt it was time for a change. The school committee discussed the matter.
But, Brother Butler, Brother Bell has served the school faithfully. He inspires the students by doing away with rote memorization and drills.
That's so, Brother Whitney. But we want a truly professional institution. And that means we need someone who has been thoroughly trained.
Well, I see what you mean. As much as we admire Brother Bell and appreciate the work he's done, he has no degree.
And we must ask ourselves, do we really want Brother Bell's style of teaching in all the classes? The purpose of memorization and drills is to discipline the mental faculties.
Well, Brother Smith, I think Brother Whitney's point is well taken. Under Brother Bell's tutelage, the children have become eager to learn. We haven't experienced some of the problems so common in other schools, where bored students too often seek release through dangerous pranks and riots.
This is true. And while some of Brother Bell's methods do seem strange to one who has received a classical education, I am aware of his dedication. The fact remains that we need someone with a degree. Now, Brother Sidney Brownsberger is available, and he has a B.A. from the University of Michigan.
Good. We should hire him to head the school.
But what of Brother Bell? Shall we shunt him aside after all he's done?
Indeed not. He can head the English department. He and his staff can teach grammar, penmanship, mathematics, geography, and bookkeeping.
That sounds good.
And Brother Brownsberger, because of his classical education, can conduct studies in modern and classical languages, philosophy, and physiology, with a staff of assistants, of course.
Brother Smith, how have the Bible classes and biblical lectures been received? Do you think it was a good idea to add Bible to the curriculum this term?
Yes, I do, Brother Whitney. I am not hidebound in my preference for the classical mode of education. While it is true that most colleges in the country have what they consider a Christian orientation, I think our experiment in offering actual Bible classes will be successful.
Students are attending the classes and lectures, then?
Yes, they are. In fact, next term, I intend to increase the lectures for advanced students from twice weekly to 5 times a week. And I am convinced that we should continue the Bible lessons in all departments.
The school, which operated only on the elementary and high school levels, opened in September 1873, still in the church building. G.H. Bell showed no resentment over the appointment of Sidney Brownsberger as principal, and while the two men were very different, they worked together in harmony. James and Ellen White had planned to go directly to California from Colorado, but in Cheyenne, Wyoming, they were impressed to attend the November 1873 General Conference session in Battle Creek. George Butler was re-elected president, and he reported that $52,000 had been raised for the proposed school. James White, Ira Abbey, John Andrews, and Uriah Smith were appointed to work with the executive committee to form an educational society for a college-level institution. When the Whites left for California in December, however, a site had not yet been chosen for the school.
Well, Brother Andrews, I was hoping the General Conference would send you to Europe as our denomination's first missionary. But I'm glad that as long as you're still here, you're on the school committee. We've all appreciated your wisdom and dedication these past weeks.
Well, thank you, Brother Butler. I still hope to go to Europe, but in the meantime, I intend to do my best to see our school soundly established. As I see it, our most pressing need is to find a site for the building.
Agreed, Brother Andrews. Moving the school to the publishing house addition has helped for the time being, but the publishing house will soon need that space.
You're right, Brother Abbey. Now, I know Sister White favors purchasing the fairgrounds for the school, but whatever would we do with 50 acres?
Perhaps we should reconsider Brother White's suggestion that we locate the school outside Battle Creek entirely. His article in the Review this week makes it clear he would still approve such a decision.
But, Brother Smith, it simply isn't practical to locate the school elsewhere.
Yes, why should we look far afield when a good property is available right here, and at a good price?
Oh, you're speaking of the Erastus Hussey estate.
I am. 12 acres for $16,000, and just across the street from the Health Institute.
I agree with Brother Abbey. Let us make it plain that we expect to hold our ground in Battle Creek. I vote that we purchase this property immediately. What say the rest of you?
Aye. The Seventh-day Adventist Educational Society was formed at last on March 11, 1874. A board of trustees was appointed and immediately made plans to erect a 3-story building, which they hoped to have ready for the fall term. Although it had not yet developed beyond a secondary school, the name chosen for the institution was Battle Creek College. During the summer of 1874, Ellen White traveled alone to the Eastern camp meetings. James was ill and suffering from depression, and there was an estrangement between them. James's letters to Ellen have been lost, but her daily letters to him survive and show her keen disappointment at the separation, as well as her determination to follow her own conscience.
Dear James, I feel deep sympathy for you in your affliction, but don't let the enemy make you think only of my deficiencies, for in trying to fix me over, you may destroy my usefulness. my freedom. Dear James, things seem an unexplainable mystery that you cannot find rest unless you succeed in bringing me into positions I cannot see and cannot possibly submit to be placed in. I long for perfect union, but I cannot purchase it at the expense of my conscience. I will ever be true to you, and I want you to have no suspicion or distrust of me that I would say or do the least thing to hurt you or lessen the confidence of your brethren in you. Never, never will I do this. Dear James, I feel very thankful for your last, more cheerful letters. I am glad you are feeling better. Dear James, we received your card last night. We shall look for and depend on your coming. Willie is well. I have no special news to write you, except I greatly desire to see your face. Your Ellen.
James arrived in Battle Creek in August, and the Whites met with the school board before the beginning of the next term. Ellen read from her essay, Proper Education, which had been published in 1872, but had evidently not been closely read by these leaders. The board was stunned.
Well, brethren, what do you have to say about Sister White's testimony?
Well, it calls for a much broader work than we've planned, and our beautiful location is useless.
Even the original 12 acres was too small for the agricultural and mechanical department Sister White recommends. And now that we've sold 7 acres...
Well, Brother Brownsburger, what can we do?
I do not know anything about the conducting of such a school where industries and farming are a part of the curriculum. I would not know how to conduct such a school.
In that case, I move we organize the school on the ordinary lines and that the matter of industries be studied with a view to their introduction later.
I second that motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Very well. The building should be completed by the end of the fall term on December 15th. When shall we have the dedication?
The Minstrel Institute is scheduled to close on January 4th. Why not have the dedication then?
Splendid idea. Students who come for the winter term will be able to attend Battle Creek College in its own building.
Good evening, sir.
Evening? Why, it's barely past 1 o'clock in the afternoon, even if those snow clouds do make it look later. Say, where are you from?
Missouri. I guess it shows, 'cause all these Michigan Yankees have been looking at me mighty strange. Down home we say evening for any time from noon to midnight.
Well, here we say afternoon for this time of day. What's your business in Battle Creek?
I'm here to go to school at Battle Creek College. My name's Revis. Drury W. Revis.
Pleased to meet you, Mr. Revis. I'm Warren Batchelor. Tell you what, I have a printing job to finish. Why don't you come inside and wait? I'll take you to the college.
That's right kind of you, Mr. Batchelor. Is this the Review and Herald?
It sure is. I've been with the Review since Saratoga Springs, New York, back in '51. Just 12 years old I was.
Bachelor! I've got to talk to you about this workup. It's a mess. Oh, hello.
Brother Amadon, this is Brother Revis, come to attend the college.
Ah.
Do you think you could take in another boarder?
Well, we're full up, but Mrs. Amadon's nephew has space, I believe. The price is $2.50 a week.
Inwardly wincing at the steep room rate, Revis accepted Amadon's offer. The college building was dedicated on January 4th, 1875. But severe cold burst the pipes overnight, and classes had to be held in the Review and Herald building until repairs could be made in the spring. Because of the Civil War and its aftermath of financial depression, many had had to delay their education. As a result, Revis, at 22, found himself sharing classes with heavily bearded men and boys and girls in their teens. But they were all at last, attending Battle Creek College. G.H. Bell was a stern disciplinarian, and this characteristic continually caused dissension between him and some students and parents. Others, such as D.W. Revis, asserted that Professor Bell was no more severe in his discipline than he was required to be under the existing circumstances. Revis recalled one day in rhetoric class when fellow Missourian Dan T. Jones, newly arrived at the college, was called upon to stand up and read a long paragraph. The slow-moving Jones began to search for the passage.
Mr. Jones is evidently asleep. Someone please awaken him.
No, sir, I'm not asleep. I'm hunting the paragraph.
Hunting. Hunting. Do people in Missouri hunt sitting down? Are you too weak to get up? Boost him, Brother Revis. Boost him.
I did not appreciate your uncalled for laughter in rhetoric class today, Revis.
Oh, Jonesy, I didn't mean anything by it. Did you think it was so bad, Avery?
I thought it was brave, Revis. No one else dared laugh. Professor Bell is strict, all right. Just ask Paul. Paul wishes there was never such a thing as a strap.
Oh, but Professor Bell isn't all strictness and discipline. He makes school fun in a way I never saw before.
That's true. Remember last week when he made us all laugh? Telling us how Montgomery and Arnold's attempt to take Quebec was foiled by mosquitoes. Hey, Jones?
Well, yeah, I do learn a lot here, and I suppose I'll get over the embarrassment. Just don't ever laugh at me again, Revis.
Dan T. Jones later became president of the Missouri Conference, secretary of the General Conference, and a lifetime missionary to Mexico. Revis claimed that Jones materially profited from his experience with Bell. Sidney Brownsberger, resistant to the idea of vocational instruction, resigned in the spring of 1881 as president of Battle Creek College. He was replaced in July by Dr. Alexander McClern, a former Baptist minister who had indicated a desire to join the SDA Church. Soon after James White's death in August, Ellen left for California, and General Conference President G.I. Butler often had to be away. In the absence of leadership, it wasn't long before conflicts arose between McClern and Bell. The first indication of trouble came at the August school board meeting.
Will the teacher's drill be offered immediately or later in the year?
Teacher's drill? What's that about, Brother Bell?
Why, Brother McClern, it's an 8-week institute designed to aid those wishing to teach in public schools. We started it last year, and it was a success.
Well, I fail to see the need of such an institute. Brother Stone, as a member of the faculty, what do you think of this teacher's drill, eh?
Well, in my opinion, it's not wise to take the faculty's time on this enterprise. We should focus our efforts on the men and women who come to pursue a full course of studies.
What? But the bulletin has already listed the teacher's drill as a permanent offering. It's a favorable advertisement for the school.
Well, I see no need for it. And I move we discontinue it.
I second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Sides were soon drawn. Board Chairman Uriah Smith was such a fond parent he found it difficult to discipline his children at all, sided with Martha Amadon, Ransom Lockwood, and a number of the teachers who supported McClern against Bell. The board considered firing McClern. Accusations and counter-accusations flew at board meetings.
And furthermore, Dr. McClern has interfered in my department. He forced me to add a class against my will and better judgment.
Professor Bell has willfully misrepresented the words and actions that have passed between us. He has been harsh and ungentlemanly in his treatment of the students, and he has persecuted me by unprovoked slander.
Dr. McClure has tried to weaken the confidence of others in my character and in my teaching. He has curried favor with the students by relaxing the social rules.
Professor Bell is a man of low character, wholly unfit to have any influence whatever in the school.
Well, do you not think such a sweeping statement excessive, Brother Miller?
Ha! Brother Miller is right. Professor Bell will destroy any man who has anything to do with him. Elder Smith, I demand an investigation.
Very well, Dr. McClure. I move that we ask all who have any charges against Professor Bell to present them in writing so that the whole matter may be considered in a conclusive manner.
The board had hoped to keep the investigation quiet and private, but the news got out. Many were called to testify, and feelings ran high in the school, church, and community. Bell was hissed by students, and his health suffered. Rumors abounded, and one of the local papers seized the opportunity to attack the college and everything it stood for. When the board finally took a vote, Bell was censured for harshness, and McClure for laxity in discipline. The actions were reported at a meeting on January 25, 1882. Both McClure and Bell were present.
Yes, Professor Bell. Do you wish to speak at this time?
I do, Brother Butler. I can only say that I accept the charge sustained against me, that I have been harsh and discourteous to students. And I hope in my future dealings with these young people to show by example that I heartily repent of this conduct.
Well, thank you, Brother Bell. The board accepts your apology.
Well, I don't accept any censure against me. The board's action is not justifiable. I have been attacked by all but Elder Uriah Smith, who voted against this action. I did what I thought was best for the school.
Brother McClure, please understand that the censure is only upon your actions. Your motives are not being questioned.
Well, if that's so...
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yes, it's so.
Well, then I also accept the censure. And I ask your forgiveness for my heated expressions.
Given, Brother McClure, gladly given. Does the faculty accept the board's decisions?
Aye.
Any objections? It's unanimous.
But at a general meeting at the Tabernacle that night, McClure defended his actions and announced that the faculty rejected the board's decisions after all. The angry students sided with McClure. A few days later, 3 outspoken faculty members were asked to resign because of their opposition to the board's decisions. They refused to leave the school, however, and the beleaguered board did not insist. The crisis came on Friday afternoon, February 17th. Bell, walking up the stairs, heard someone stomping up behind him and turned to face McClure's son, Henry.
Mr. McClure, kindly explain your conduct in coming up the stairs in such a rude manner, and stop this instant.
Ha! I'll show you what we think of you.
Stop pushing me! Stop it, I say! I'm losing my balance!
I'll show you. Hey! Let go of me! You're attacking me!
I'm merely holding your arm to stop you from pushing me down. You stop pushing and I'll let go.
Never, you old...
What's going on here?
You won't let go of my arm. Ha! Got away from you.
What have you to say for yourself, Professor Bell?
I was defending... Please, I'm dizzy. I can hardly stand up.
What? You should know better than to assault a student. You, of all people, after the board has already censured you for exactly...
It was the last straw. Although McClern did later suspend his son, and the school expelled the boy, the humiliated Bell had had enough. He resigned. "Whatever may be Brother Bell's faults," wrote Ellen White to the Battle Creek Church, "your course is unjustifiable and unchristian." Stung by her criticism, Uriah Smith resigned from the board. The time came, however, when he asked for Bell's forgiveness. At the end of that 1881-1882 term, the board voted to temporarily close Battle Creek College. Alexander McClern left and later joined the Seventh-day Baptists. Though the situation looked bleak, it was not the end for Seventh-day Adventist education. 2 new schools opened in 1882, and G.H. Bell was instrumental in founding one of them. Even before Battle Creek College closed its doors, Bell was back where he most loved to be, in the classroom. Because of illness, S.N. Haskell, president of the New England Conference and a member of the Battle Creek College Board, did not arrive in Battle Creek until just before Professor Bell's resignation from the college. Within a day or so, Haskell called on Bell.
Brother Bell, the New England Conference has recently voted to take immediate steps in organizing a school. Elder Doris Robinson, Brother F.W. Mace have been named to join the conference committee in comprising a school board. It's really going to happen at last.
Ah, yes. Brother Willie White said you wanted me to find a woman to head the school.
Yes.
Your requirements were quite stringent. A good teacher with good moral stamina, I was told, able to keep her own counsels and manage a good-sized school, as well as being a good Bible student. I'm afraid I haven't been able to locate such a person.
Yes, well, Mrs. Haskell won't be surprised. She suggested that to find such a paragon, I had better go over on the other shore.
Have you then lowered your sights to those who are available on this earth?
That's why I'm here. Brother Bell, will you head the school?
Me? Mm-hmm. Are you aware of the depth of feeling against me?
We need you, Brother Bell. This is going to be the kind of school Sister White has recommended, the kind of school you believe in, combining spiritual, physical, and mental development. Bible instruction will be an important part of the program.
I'm glad to hear that. Sister White has urged that a program of Bible study be required for all students. The Bible deserves more than an hour's study in a week.
I knew you'd agree. We'll also emphasize physiology and hygiene, and training in the agricultural, domestic, and mechanic arts.
Brother Haskell, you paint a tempting picture, but the trouble I've been through has been grievous for me and my family. My daughter Eva has been extremely ill for weeks as a result of the strain we've been under. Yes. She is just now able to sit up.
I sympathize, Brother Bell, but I can't impress upon you strongly enough how much we need your help. This school must be established.
Well, I'll stay for 1 year to see it well organized and established.
Edith Sprague, a supporter of Bell who resigned from the Battle Creek faculty when he did, agreed to teach with him. Determined to learn from his mistakes, Bell set off for South Lancaster early in April, accompanied by his 11-year-old son, Omar. Church members worked to prepare the schoolhouse, an old 18 by 24-foot carriage shop.
Brother Bell, I have news. Miss Maria Huntley, secretary of the Tract and Missionary Society, has agreed to teach a class in missionary methods.
Good, Brother Haskell. Then, with Miss Sprague teaching the primary grades and myself instructing the advanced classes, we should be able to provide good, practical education that will give the students actual skill in doing things rather than merely telling them how to do them.
I appreciate your dedication to training children to become Christian workers.
I firmly believe that the program we have planned will perfect the noblest specimens of manhood and womanhood that can be produced in the tainted atmosphere of these degenerate times.
Have you settled on an opening day?
I think April 19th, the anniversary of the Battle of Lexington. My great-grandfather fought in that battle of the Revolutionary War, and now we're beginning a revolutionary enterprise with this school that will train students to think instead of simply to memorize.
Fine. And what sort of manual labor program have you planned?
I think I'll be revolutionary in that respect, too. I'll let the students make suggestions.
Okay, Farnsworth, you said you wanted the students to meet right after school. We're all here.
Thank you, Tucker. I think we all realize that great effort and sacrifice have gone into founding this school. For myself, I want to see it start right and meet with the approval of God, and I think we all want that.
Yes.
Good. Now, the men students have met during the day and discussed Professor Bell's remarks about manual labor. We've drawn up some resolutions that we think will help. In brief, we're asking that the school committee provide us with 1 acre of land. We will cultivate it and donate the proceeds to the school.
What a wonderful idea! The women can help by doing the laundry and repairing the clothing for the young men who donate their time to cultivating the land for the school.
And we'll be glad to help in any other way whenever opportunities present themselves.
Let's put it to a vote. All in favor?
Aye!
Very well. We shall present resolutions to the officials of the school. In the meantime, let's do our best in our classes.
Mr. Tucker.
Yes, sir.
Please analyze this sentence for us. The old man lost his book in the fire.
Man is the subject. Lost is the predicate. Book tells what he lost. His tells whose book. In the fire tells where.
For the next school year, the board voted to require 3 hours of work a day with pay. 2 houses were rented for dormitories, and the old carriage shop was moved between them to serve as a dining room. Bell was unsure about remaining at South Lancaster. He was suffering from eye trouble, and besides, in May, the Battle Creek College Board had voted to invite him to return there. Ellen White, however, advised the board not to bring Bell back to Battle Creek because the condition of the church there would hinder his work. So when school began on August 30th, 1882, with 48 students in the basement of the South Lancaster Church, Bell was present. Edith Sprague noted that he was very kind to the students and that they thought much of him. He organized a Christmas sleighing party, and in the spring, on the school's anniversary, he took the students boating on the Nashua River. On December 12, 1883, the school finally received a name, South Lancaster Academy. But as the school grew, the pressures on Bell increased, as did his differences with Haskell.
What is it, Stephen? You look discouraged. I take it the board meeting did not go well.
Not well at all, Mary.
Did they change their minds about teaching trades?
Oh, no, we'll have tent making, harness making, broom making, cobbling, carpentry, dressmaking, and the household arts. That decision stands.
But
I think we should get a woman who has no other duties in the school to take charge of the dormitories. But Professor Bell doesn't want to give up an iota of control. He thinks the students and teachers should have the full management.
They seem to have done well so far without formal rules.
But the teachers are working 16 hours a day. Tempers are beginning to fray. There have been unpleasant exchanges at the board meetings. Miss Sprague's health has failed, and Professor Bell's isn't good. I wish I didn't have to go to California right now.
Well, the term will soon be over. Next year, perhaps you can make other arrangements.
We've invited him back for next year.
You have? In spite of your doubts?
I don't doubt his teaching ability. I just wish I could be as certain about his ability to administer the school.
Bell kept in touch with his former pupil, Elder Willie White. In July 1882, he wrote to Willie that he had been hermitizing by the banks of a pond. He felt ill-used and said he suffered from congestion of the brain. Admitting that he did not always see things as they really were, he declared he dare not make any plans in his present condition. Finally, he returned to Battle Creek for treatment at the sanitarium, operated by another former student, Dr. Kellogg. Ellen White returned from California, and the two had a long talk in late August.
Sister White, I cannot thank you enough for the counsel you gave me in your letter earlier this summer. As I wrote to you afterward, I never experienced a greater change of thought and feeling than I did after I received that letter. I greatly appreciate both your honesty and your kindness.
Brother Bell, once more you are bearing so many responsibilities that you can do justice to none. You are making the mistake of educating people to depend upon you instead of upon God.
You said something of the sort in your letter, and here in this letter I prepared for you, I say, I will try to regard others as not only better but wiser than myself. I hope I may be able to act more like a gentleman and a Christian.
To accomplish that, you must not stand to pick up every little flaw and mark every misdemeanor. You can do much by talking kindly to the school. Always maintain your position as a dignified teacher.
Isn't that what I've been doing?
I'm not speaking of that dignity that will not heed the counsels of others, but that kindness, that courtesy, that will win your way into the hearts of your students.
Bell returned to South Lancaster for the 1883-84 school year, but his differences with Haskell increased. Haskell considered the training of workers to be the primary object of Seventh-day Adventist education, while Bell concentrated on the development of character. At the end of the spring term, Bell returned to Battle Creek. For the next 15 years, he taught by correspondence and by private instruction in his home, wrote several textbooks, and published a monthly educational journal. The end came on January 16th, 1899, as he drove into town to work with some private pupils.
Get up, Beauty. Soon as we arrive, you can go into a nice, warm stable. Oh, no, there go my papers. Oh, whoa, Beauty. Oh, 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 oh!
Somebody go stop that horse. Take care of the driver first.
The carriage is smashed. The driver's caught in the wreckage.
It is, Professor Bell. He's been kicked in the head.
Quick, carry him to the sanitarium.
Half an hour after reaching the hospital, Bell died without regaining consciousness. His funeral 3 days later was attended by the largest congregation in Battle Creek since the funeral of James White 8 years before. G.H. Bell left his mark on Seventh-day Adventist education. Bell Hall, home of the School of Education at Andrews University, bears his name. And that New England school, for which he labored so diligently, if imperfectly, thrived. And in 1922, it became Atlantic Union College. During the fall camp meeting in 1881, shortly after Chester Arthur succeeded the assassinated James Garfield as President of the United States, the Seventh-day Adventists in California had decided they needed a school of their own. Willie White, an outspoken advocate of the idea, visited Sheboygan, Michigan in December to convince Sidney Brownsberger to head the new institution.
Brother White, my wife and I are quite happy teaching at the public school.
But we need you to help us start this new school in California, Brother Brownsberger. Your health seems to be better for these past months of rest.
It's not that. Since my unhappy experiences at Battle Creek College, I have studied and rethought Sister White's instructions regarding education, and I have made a resolution never again to enter denominational employment except on the basis of the lines and reforms set forth in the testimonies.
That's exactly what we plan. A school that will emphasize Bible study and practical employment along with mental study.
I would have to insist that the students board at the school instead of in private homes. The Battle Creek School Board considered dormitories unsafe for the moral growth of the students. That was one of our mistakes.
How so?
The students were so scattered that they were much of the time out of reach and exposed to demoralizing influences that tended to counteract much of the benefits acquired by contact with the discipline of the school.
Then we will plan for a school home. You and Sister Brownsberger can live here with the students.
But how can we leave here in the middle of the school year?
Well, G.W. Cavaness is about finished with his studies at Battle Creek College. I'll see if I can get the school to graduate him in mid-year so he and his wife can replace you and Mrs. Brownsberger here.
If you can do that, we'll go to California. By the way, where's the school?
We don't know yet. We have to find a place we can afford with enough room to establish industries. We're still looking.
Brother and Sister Brownsberger, welcome to Oakland.
Thank you, Brother White.
Climb into the carriage.
And such a warm welcome. March in California is much milder than the weather we left in Battle Creek.
That it is, Sister Brownsberger. But you'll be glad of this robe to tuck around you against the fog, at least for a while. The property is about 65 miles northwest of here in Santa Rosa Valley.
A school building, I think you said, Brother White.
That's right. It used to be the Healdsburg Institute, 2 stories sitting on 3 acres. It cost us only $3,750 in gold coin.
What about the people in town, Brother White? How do they respond to the school?
Very enthusiastically. The Russian River Flag, that's the local newspaper, expects the school to attract new and desirable residents to the town.
Well, that's certainly a welcoming attitude.
Healdsburg Academy, the denomination's second school, opened April 11, 1882, just 8 days before the school in South Lancaster, Massachusetts. During that first 10-week term, the Brownsbergers were the entire faculty for 26 students, mostly of grade school age. They all lived in the boarding house that was used until a dormitory could be built. Willie White arrived on campus one morning to find the normally dignified Brownsberger busy in the yard.
Principal Brownsberger, I almost didn't recognize you with a wheelbarrow and shovel.
They're beginning as we mean to go on, Brother White. I'm used to farm work, and nothing succeeds better than a good example. The boys are catching on fast.
And the girls are with Sister Brownsberger, I take it?
Yes, she led them to the laundry this morning. It was quite a surprise for some of them who've never worked a day in their lives, but they're willing enough.
We've made a beginning. We have won the victory. The labor-by students will be a glory and an honor wherever they take part. Already I'm looking forward to the next term. The school board agrees, then, that we should start the second term on July 29th. Does that meet with everyone's approval?
Yeah.
Very well. I'm glad to report that Professor and Mrs. W.C. Granger have agreed to join the faculty. Brother Wagoner, will you introduce the next item on the agenda?
The townspeople of Healdsburg object to the name Academy. They think college would give more prestige. I therefore move we change the name of the school to Healdsburg College.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous.
When North Hall was completed early in 1883, the men and women moved in on separate floors. Trades began to be taught in 1883, and students in the biblical department under E.J. Wagoner participated in conducting meetings, canvassing, and giving Bible studies. When Brownsberger left in 1886, he could be proud of the start that had been made. Brownsburger was succeeded by Missourian W.C. Granger, who was beloved by students and faculty. A family atmosphere prevailed.
Remember, girls, a Christian is not exclusive, so I trust that outside your room you will each seek the company of someone else, and be impartial in your attention to all.
Yes, Professor Granger.
Oh, we will, sir.
Very well. Now take this note to the matron, and she'll assign
Professor
you...
Granger, you're needed in the kitchen at once. It's an emergency.
I understand I'm wanted here.
Oh, Professor Granger, you must call the cook back from vacation at once. Look, all these peaches have just been delivered, and they'll spoil if they're not canned immediately. What are you doing with that apron?
I couldn't possibly recall Miss Fisher from her vacation. 'Twould be cruel. I shall can the peaches myself. It is my pleasure to report to the board that Healdsburg College has made a profit of $3,590 for their 1887-88 school year.
Wonderful. Well, that's encouraging.
We haven't had a lot. What about the enrollment for this year?
The total number of students was 227, of whom 184 were from California, 9 from Kansas, and 5 from Washington Territory. Foreign students numbered 5 from Hawaii, 3 from New Zealand, and 1 from Haiti.
Granger's administration was the heyday of Healdsburg College. But when W. Prescott visited the school in 1891, he was shocked by California informality. In Prescott's opinion, it was impossible to run a school without form. Granger was replaced in 1894. In 1896, he and his wife went as missionaries to Japan, where he died in 1899. His successor was Frank Howe, who was sent out from Michigan with his assistants. They were Dr. Frank Moran and Professor W.E. Howell. They quickly instituted a formality that was not welcomed.
Oh, I'm sorry. You can't go in.
I have to. I need to see the president.
But you don't have an appointment.
An appointment? I've never had to make an appointment.
I'm afraid it's a new rule. And even with the appointment, you can't just walk right in. You have to ring a bell.
Who says?
3 wise men from the east.
Well, maybe I don't need to see the president after all. I'll just go ahead with my own plans without consulting him.
President Howe, our financial situation has worsened. The effects of last year's financial panic are still being felt. We opened school this year with only 65 students in the school home.
I blame that on the bicycle craze, Professor Howell. Young people are spending so much on those machines and their upkeep, no one has any money left for college.
Perhaps if we introduce some special courses for part-time students.
Good idea. We'll begin planning immediately.
In 1895, Howe courageously adopted a strictly vegetarian diet for the dormitory. Before his term of office ended, he had succeeded in winning the approval of the students. Howe was followed in 1897 by R.S. Owen, and in 1899 by M.E. Cady. Ellen White returned to California from Australia in 1900, and Cady benefited from her counsel on her visits to Healdsburg.
Sister White, a number of young men who are not from Adventist families have objected to the food served in our dining room. They say it tastes like sawdust.
Oh, dear.
They want the privilege of going into town to eat a good square meal at a restaurant. How can I control them?
Well, it's a hard situation and a very trying one to these boys.
To the boys?
Yes. We should love them and, if possible, lead them into the truth. This their parents are praying for.
But to allow them to go into town for meals?
Well, of course, we could not allow them to go down to the restaurants and eat. But the food in the dining room should be very palatable, and they should have all the good food that we can supply them. Plenty of butter, milk, eggs, and vegetables, so that there will be no lack of good food.
But We serve no butter at all, and eggs not very liberally. The board made that decision based on your own counsel 2 or 3 years ago.
Yes, but the board has run way ahead of the Lord. I have stated that the time would come when animals would be so diseased that it would not be safe to use their products as food. But that time has not yet come. Butter, cream, milk, and eggs are still to be served, and we are to serve them until we find substitutes to take their place.
Presidents E.D. Sharp and W.E. Howell presided over an increasingly desperate financial situation. The San Francisco earthquake of 1906 came the day after Howell was told his services would not be required beyond the end of the term. The earthquake caused only about $1,000 damage at the school, but with numerous aftershocks occurring for the next few months, the students felt safer sleeping outside. The college limped along with Dr. L.A. Reed at the helm from 1906 to 1908, but the end could not be held off. The college building was sold in 1907, and classes were held in the dormitory. In 1908, the school was renamed Pacific Union College, and on July 14, 1908, the Healdsburg facility was closed. Pacific Union College opened in the fall of 1908 at Angwin, California, on Howell Mountain, where it remains to this day, a monument to the Advent pioneers of the last century.